So one of my earliest memories is of being 2 to 3 years old. It was a weekend, so my father was at home, and I went running into the sitting room where he was sitting in a big, comfy armchair, reading his newspaper. I know now it was the Financial Times. And I went running towards him, eager to jump onto his lap. And as I approached him and went to jump onto his lap, I could feel his awkwardness as he cried out to my mother to come and remove me from the room so he could sit in peace. Now I'm sure that I've done many similar things to my children, but this experience set the template for my relationship with my father for the next 50 years. My relationship with my father has been the most difficult, the most painful relationship I've had in this lifetime. I tried to reach him time and time again. I remember that my school reports were never quite good enough. My sporting prowess never received the praise that I longed for. On my 18th birthday, I even accompanied him to a brothel, and I felt a moment of elation and specialness that we were going to share this special moment together. But it was very short-lived, and it was followed by revulsion and self-hatred. I remember later in life as an adult, sitting watching the television, watching some golf tournament, and I had a moment of awareness, and I thought, what the hell am I doing? You hate golf. You've never played a round of golf in your life. Why are you watching this? And the answer came that I was looking for a topic of conversation to go and talk to my father and connect with my father about, because he loved golf. He was president of the local golf club. But that failed too. All of my life, I had this feeling that I lacked something fundamental. And the only person I could get it from was my father. And if I didn't get this, I could never be a successful man. I could never be a successful husband. I could never be a successful lover. And I could never be a successful father. It's like some vital ingredient of masculinity I lacked. I spent 10 years in therapy, crying, wailing, ranting, raging, complaining that I didn't have the father that I wanted. And so it went on. Every time I tried to reach him, it failed. I became a rebel, which was not a great strategy because he was a complete conformist. So he was never going to approve of this rebel. And so it went on. Towards the end of his life, he became very ill. And he went into a nursing home. And he was in this nursing home for at least 18 months. And I went to visit him every day of this 18 months. Not from a sense of love, but from a sense of duty and this quiet desperation that time was running out. And during this period I felt in deep conflict. I thought, shall I reach out one more time? But the thought and the pain of rejection was too much. So I thought I'd pray every day. I'd pray for a sign. And if I got a sign, I'd have one more go. No sign, no go. And I was sitting with him one day, and the sign came. He said, we're getting near to the end. And I said to him, Dad, there's something really important, really, really important to me that I need to talk to you about before you die. And he said, what's that? And I said, all my life, from being a little boy, from being a teenager, from being a young adult to being a mature adult, I've always felt this emptiness inside in relation to you. I've always felt that you never approved of me. And there was a short pause, and he looked at me and he said, I haven't. And my chin hit the floor, this horrible twirly floor of this nursing home. And I slowly picked myself up, and I remember thinking, I was a little bit relieved. I thought, at least you're not mad. At least you're not mad. And we carried on some banal conversation. And 2 months later, I was in the same room, in the same nursing home, when he died. I was with him when he died. None of my siblings, I've got 3 siblings, they weren't there. And I was sitting in a chair next to his bed when he died. And I knew the moment. It was tangible. It was a deep knowing, he's dead. And I stood up, and I leant over the bed, and I kissed him on the forehead. Very tenderly. I'd never kissed my father. I haven't got any memory of being kissed by him. It was a very precious moment. And 2 things happened when I leant over that bed and I kissed him. His body was still warm, obviously. The first thing was I had this terrible feeling, it's over, it's finished. There's no possibility now of getting what I'd longed for all my life. It was like he'd never passed me the baton, and I was running the race of life without a baton. And now it was too late. The opportunity had gone forever. Alongside that same thought, there was this deep inner knowing that my father had loved me from the day I was conceived up to and including that day. There was no bright lights, there was no flashes of thunder, but I felt full inside. The emptiness had gone. It was a magical feeling. I knew it to be true. That was 8 years ago. And in the years that have followed, I've tried doubting that experience. And I've never been able to doubt the veracity of that experience. Every day I've known that my father loved me from the day I was conceived up to and including today. And it changed the world I lived in. And when I work with individuals and I work with groups, I often say to them, there's 2 stories. The first story is my father didn't love me. And I knew that with every fibre of my being for 52 years. And I had 6 feet of evidence, better than any QC in the country, including in the middle the fact he told me he didn't love me. So I was on pretty clear grounds. And everywhere I went, sooner or later I shared with people, and by the way, my father didn't love me. It was part of my identity. Who would I be without that piece? And then for the last 8 years, I've known with every fibre of my being that my father loved me, my father adored me, since the moment I was conceived, up to and including today. Which one of these is true? I ask you now, which one of these is true? And I always say to people, both are true. This one was true for 52 years, and this one's been true for 8 years. But it changed the world I lived in. It changed my relationship to my wife. It changed my relationship to my children. And I've thought about this experience many times since. And I think there are 2 important learnings that I got from this experience, which I've applied to other situations in my life. The first is I asked, why did this happen? And the answer is, I gave up. I gave in. I knew it was impossible. And in that giving in, I received. I was open to receiving in some way the one thing that I'd longed for all my life, more than anything else. And the second thing was that I realized that all my life I had been trying to get something from him. I've been trying to get something, just as sometimes I try to get something from my wife. Sometimes I try to get something from my children. And the energy of trying to get something from another never seems to work. And when I gave up, I discovered I already had what I was trying to get. So for me, you can't fake this. I can't fake it. I can't force it. For me, it's a happening. I choose to call it a moment of grace. But this, for me, is the greatest gift ever.